SNL is live. Myself, Cody Stutes, Landry Locker not with me today. He'll be back next week. He's got a wedding to attend. If you've been watching the show the past couple of days, you knew that was going to happen. Appreciate everybody getting in the chat, get in live here. If you're watching this after the fact, the comment section is, of course, active. Do your best to answer questions if you have it there. Super chats go to the front of the line. Lots to get to here on this show. We're going to talk about the tight end position, specifically Dalton Schultz, because there's some tight end movement that got me thinking about the Houston Texans tight end situation. I also want to talk about what Azeez Al-Shaair got the wheels turning up here for me on when it comes to this defense, and talking about what exactly take it off looks like for this defense, and three key pieces to this defense that need to show up here in 2025 to really go to that next level. So appreciate everybody getting in the chat, and appreciate everybody for watching along. Let's start with what Azeez Al-Shaair had to say at OTAs yesterday. They really got the gears turning up here between my ears. The Texans hit the field for OTAs yesterday. They'll have another open workout tomorrow. Full detailed breakdown of that on SNL tomorrow at 4 p.m. We'll have all of that for you as well. But Azeez Al-Shaair talked after practice yesterday, and something he said really jumped off the page to me, and I wanted to kind of use it as a jumping off point for this defense.
When you have a team, especially like this one, with a lot of like young talent, a lot of the guys that's contributed for us over the years, and it's, especially like last year with this team, it's been a lot of young guys, and guys are kind of like year 3, year 4, and I remember me back in San Francisco in year 2 going into year 3, just like that OTAs. That's really my 3rd year in the league was really where I felt like that OTAs was more crisp, and going into that training camp, it was just like that light switch just kind of clicked on for me.
So year 3 for Azeez Al-Shaair, he said it felt like the light switch clicked on for him. So I got to thinking, who's headed into year 3? Well, a lot of people are headed into year 3 for the Houston Texans. DeMeco Ryans with his defense is the one that jumped to mind right away. Now, there's been some significant change on the offense, so there's no year 3 in this offense for the offense. It's year 1 of what Nick Caley and company have to put together, but it's year 3 for DeMeco Ryans and his defense. So I got to thinking, okay, year 3, Azeez Al-Shaair said the light bulb kind of came on for him in year 3. Are there some players headed into year 3 of this defense that really take the defense from here to here, take it from a really good defense to an elite defense, take it from a potentially elite defense to one of the best defenses in all of football? The Texans did a good job of stopping yardage allowed last year, but they were still outside the top 10 in points allowed. That's the next jump for them, is the points allowed goes down. I'm assuming the turnovers goes up, the yards kind of stays where it is. The Texans have themselves an elite defense. So I got to thinking, year 3 in the D, key. I love me a little rhyme. Year 3 in the D, key. And I'm going to cheat a little bit when I do this with the first one. But year 3 in the D, key, number 1, Jalen Petrie. Now, this isn't Jalen Petrie's upcoming season, his 3rd season in the National Football League. This is Jalen Petrie's 4th season coming up, but it is his 3rd season with DeMeco Ryans. So there's your 3, year 3 in the D, key. Now, it's his 2nd season in this specific role, but understanding what DeMeco Ryans needs and wants out of Jalen Petrie is going to be really important for this defense. When you think about how they want to play defense, when you think about how they played defense for a large majority of the season last year, it had Jalen Petrie on the field. It had Jalen Petrie playing that nickel cornerback, slot cornerback, star linebacker, or whatever the hell you want to call the position. I just call it the Petrie position. It had Petrie on the field. You think about some of those early games where Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock and Derek Stingley and Jalen Petrie just weren't coming off the field. They were playing a ton of football. And I do feel like Part of that was necessity because the Texans didn't totally have the linebacker situation to mix and match the way that they wanted to. And they dealt with some linebacker injuries a few weeks into the season, forcing some backups into action and forcing those guys on the field. And Petrie just happened to be healthy and available, and they played him a lot. But you saw the kind of dip when there was no Jalen Petrie on the field for the Texans. They didn't have a replacement for him. There wasn't a whole lot more extra linebacker play that they had to throw out there on the field. And as you look at 2025, Petrie feels like a key element to this defense. He's got experience playing this position the way that DeMeco Ryans wants him to play this position and perhaps even needs him to play this position, to play defense the way that they want to. There's not a clear-cut backup for everything that Petrie does. Sure, Jimmy Ward can cover a little bit better than Jalen Petrie, maybe even a lot better than Jalen Petrie, but Jimmy Ward's not sticking his nose in there around the line of scrimmage like Petrie is. And maybe Jalen Reed and maybe Jalen Smith can fill in for Jalen Petrie if he's not there, but those are rookies, and you're really asking a lot out of them when some of their first NFL action would be filling in a key role in a key spot on this defense. Because if the Texans are going to play 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, Petrie in his spot, and the rest in defensive backs, if that's going to be the majority of their defense this season, they're going to need Jalen Petrie to play really well. So year 3 with DeMeco, year 3 in the D key, number 1, Jalen Petrie. I did think the way Azeez Al-Shaair talked about Jalen Petrie was pretty fun as well.
No, Jalen, that's my guy, man. You know, I love Jalen. Even when I first was in Tennessee and we played against the Texans, like we just, for some reason, just always clicked after the game talking. We're talking for like 10 minutes just after the game. That was the first time I ever met him. So when I got here, he was one of the first people to, you know, like kind of welcome me and introduce me. And ever since then, like he's been my guy. So it's special. I mean, I'm just so proud of like the growth that he's had. And obviously, you know, you get the contract and it just makes you feel like, yeah, like you earned that. And he did, you know. I'd pay him even more money, man. Like, you know, he's a big part of what we do, and it's good to have him out there.
All right, slow down, Azeez, with that. I'd pay him even more money. Slow down with that a little bit. But he is an important piece to this defense. He's one of the keys to that defense kind of going the next level because DeMeco Ryans has to be able to play defense the exact way that he wants to play defense. So that's year 3 key in the D, number 1. Year 3 key in the D, number 2, is Henry T. or Christian Harris. It could be one of the two. It could be either Henry To'oTo'o or Christian Harris. But when you think back to when San Francisco really had that impressive defense, first under Robert Saleh and then under DeMeco Ryans, they had 2 linebackers that they could trust, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. They had 2 guys they could put on the field in a bunch of different situations, in a bunch of different scenarios, and find themselves with a high level of confidence that those guys can get it done. They really didn't have that 2 linebacker set this time a year ago. And we knew Azeez Al-Shaair was going to be on the field, but we didn't know who that other guy was going to be. We were hoping it was going to be Christian Harris. His injury in training camp kept him from being that guy throughout the course of the 2024 season. And then Henry To'oTo'o stepped up. Now, you don't need both of these guys, but it'd be nice if you did. I think about To'oTo'o and the improvement that he made from year 1 to year 2, big leap. And then Al-Shaair, specifically talking about the 3rd year in the National Football League, it certainly feels like for Henry To'oTo'o, if it really light bulb comes on, it looked like the light bulb came on last year, but light bulb comes on this year. He's in even better shape than he was last season. To'oTo'o could be a trusted piece to this defense. And again, 2 trusted linebackers is going to maximize what this Texans defense can do. And To'oTo'o was trusted for a good portion of last year. His tackling was better. His play recognition was better. There's still limits to what Henry To'oTo'o can bring to the table. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. There are some tackling some moments that you'd maybe want back as you watch back 2024. But the jump from what he was as a rookie to year 2, if he had a similar jump, then he's absolutely the type of player you're putting on the field a lot. You're trusting him with the opportunity, and you're going to have that trusted linebacker duo in the middle of the defense that knows exactly what DeMeco Ryans wants, the extension of DeMeco Ryans on the field, and you can get the most out of this defense. You're already getting a lot. The secondary is impressive. The defensive line's impressive. The linebackers, they catch up. They become trusted, and they're two types of guys that DeMeco Ryans doesn't feel like he has to swap out or game plan or situation adjust for. That could really unlock the next level to this defense. The Christian Harris element of this is fascinating because Harris is more athletic. He's a better coverage guy than Henry To'oTo'o. I do wonder if Christian Harris was healthy enough, available enough, and in tune last year, if maybe he'd been the guy in charge of Travis Kelce in the playoff game and not Azeez Al-Shaair in coverage, which is not a strong suit for what Al-Shaair brings to the table. That's what I felt like you missed with Christian Harris, is a little bit of physicality and athleticism from that position and the ability to understand the defense, understand where he needs to be. Remember the playoff game against the Cleveland Browns? Christian Harris, boom, right where he needed to be. Yeah, DeMeco Ryans helped him out a little bit, but Harris still had to get there, use the athleticism, and honestly work his way onto the field to the point where Ryans trust him. That started back in the Tampa game. Injury ruined last year, basically didn't play a year in the NFL is essentially the way that it looked at. I know he got on the field late in the year, but DeMeco Ryans has kind of washed that away as, hey, it didn't really bring much to the table because he never got in a groove after the injury. So these linebackers, if that kind of rounds out as the final piece of the defense, we got two linebackers you inherently totally trust as DeMeco Ryans. You put them on the field with that secondary, with that defensive line, you're really going to be in a good spot there. Year 3 in the D key. Number 2, Henry To'oTo'o or Christian Harris. Now, I know you may be thinking, hey, when's Derek Stingley come up here? Derek Stingley was already an All-Pro last year. Derek Stingley just needs to be an All-Pro again. I don't know that he's a key. It's kind of a foregone conclusion that if you want to be an elite defense, Derek Stingley's got to be Derek Stingley. Again, one of the best cornerbacks in football. Sure, if he was the best cornerback in football, that would raise the ceiling a little bit, but not as much as some of the other teammates here in year 3 showing up. But of course, that'd be year 3 in the D for Derek Stingley this upcoming season. Now, year 3 in the D, number 3. We'll get to it in just a second, but I Must Pandaline has the super chat. She says, love y'all, heart emoji, let's swarm, and then she puts up the H. Thank you, Panda, for the super chat. Thank you, everybody, for getting in the comment section, the comments, the nice things that you guys say, the interaction that you have. Big appreciation for everybody for the Frank Ross donations. When we had Frank on a couple of weeks ago, the first of multiple donations that we're going to make to Frank Ross's charity, put that in today. So that was nice. And again, really thank everybody for that. Okay, so Jalen Petrie was key number 1. Henry T or Christian Harris, key number 2. Key number 3 is Will Anderson. And look, Will Anderson already excellent. Will Anderson already a Pro Bowl caliber defensive lineman and defensive end in the National Football League. He's one of the guys that if you did a fantasy draft of non-quarterbacks, Will Anderson would be a pretty early selection in start your franchise mode, okay? If you just put all the players in the player pool, Will Anderson would be one of the early selections when you start thinking about what he can be and what he can bring to the table. Because really, that's what we're talking about here. We know what Will Anderson's done. It's really good. Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was even better his second year. For the third year, for my third trick, for his third year, Will Anderson, if he goes to the supernova, if he goes to the elite level of defensive ends, if he goes to the point where at the end of the year we're talking about, geez, is he going to be getting paid like Nick Bosa? Is he going to be getting paid, in the Myles Garrett range? Is he going to be getting Danielle Hunter's type of money? If that's where Will Anderson goes, this defense just goes through the roof. He was already really impressive last year. He was already one of the more consistent defensive linemen in all of football last year, both from a pass rush standpoint as well as a run stop standpoint. He increased his sack total. He increased his tackle for a loss total, and he did all that playing in less games than his rookie season. Will Anderson's improvement, Will Anderson's next level status is really the thing that unlocks the final portion of this defense. Year 3 in the D, big time key is if Will Anderson turns into one of the 5 best pass rushers in all of football. If he's up there with Myles Garrett and Trey Hendrickson and Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons, if he puts his name with those guys, the Texans will be damn near unstoppable on defense. Because if he is if he has got an output to that level on a consistent basis with Danielle Hunter, with that defensive tackle spot that the Texans seem to kind of just trust anybody to man down, with the secondary that's got a little bit of a jump here with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, you really start talking about a defense that just wholly and totally can shut down opposing offenses, regardless of how good that opposing offense is. If Will Anderson is taking his level of play from 7 sacks in his rookie year to 11, if he's a 15-sack guy, if he's a 18-sack guy, if he's a 16 and a half with really good run stopping, if he's on the Watt path where you don't run at him, you can't run away from him, and he gets to the quarterback, then the Texans defense is going to be one of the best in all of football. And they may not even need a Jalen Petrie and a Henry To'oTo'o and a Christian Harris to do it. Because if Will Anderson goes supernova this season, clearly makes himself one of the best defensive linemen in all of football, who's stopping the Houston Texans defense from totally disrupting what an opposing offense can do? Yeah, there's some really good tackles in football. There's some really good right tackles. The Texans are going to play some of them, but they're not going to stop Will Anderson. They might slow him down on occasion, but if he gets to the point where he can't be stopped, D'Amico Ryan's defense in year 3, it's going to be something to watch. Just listen to Will Anderson talking about maximizing OTAs, basically the hey, you got to fine-tune this, and the next level is right ahead of you.
Coach Rod, I think he's been doing an excellent job. Like, we do these things called pro grows, and that's when we go back and look at all the tape from last year. And he did a really good job of putting together a really good presentation for each and one of us. And for me, mine's just reaching with precision. So after practice or during practice when I'm not in, we're getting on the dummies, we're reaching, we're going through bags, bending the corner, reaching with precision, stuff like that, and just making sure it's just muscle memory. So when you get on Sunday, you're just doing it.
It's the small things in Will Anderson's game. It's taking it to the next level. We talked about it on the show yesterday when his college teammate, J.C. Latham at Alabama. Anderson was kind of a power and athleticism guy in college, and Latham got the best of him. Once he saw Anderson in the NFL, he was like, totally different guy. He's mastered things, the reach, the hand placement, the speed to power, and Anderson's body transformation, the added weight, taking the weight from year 2 and turning it into muscle and using it. It's a really exciting year. I'll be making a wager on Will Anderson to win Defensive Player of the Year. I'm very excited about what Will Anderson can bring to the table. I want to get to some of your comments, your questions, and then I want to talk about the tight end situation for the Texans because a Landry Locker favorite is available, but the Texans probably can't go get him. JB and Allen, the Annihilator, Will Anderson, Hutchinson, I always compare them, that's Aiden Hutchinson from the Lions, as 2, it seems both lit a fire under their defense as soon as they arrived. As Will Anderson surpassed Hutchinson as being the next up top pass rusher? I would say no, just because Hutchinson was on a historic tear to start the season last year. He was truly unstoppable last year and was one of the best players in football till he broke his leg. And I don't know that Will Anderson has reached that level, but if you told me he started the season on a Aiden Hutchinson-like tear, I don't think that's out of the question. Like, it's not easy to do, but it's not out of the question. It's within his realm of abilities and talents that he possesses heading into year 3 for the Houston Texans. Saeed says, would love to see someone on our team get 20-plus sacks again. My favorite time watching the Texans was J.J. Watt's peak years. In 2014, J.J. Watt was one of the most insane football players I've ever watched in my entire life. So, I mean, that was incredible. That was incredible. So, if he was able to reach even for stretches, Watt-esque status. Again, you're talking about a player that, while he was excellent last year, they haven't had like that supernova force on defense these past couple of seasons. There have been stretches where they've played really well, the defensive ends specifically, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. But, I mean, Watt was incredible for whole seasons. If Will Anderson puts it together for a whole season and the health stays right for him, and you're talking about a guy that's going to be really tough to stop. And you're talking about a guy that really helps take that Texans defense to that next level. Hey, look, it's the locker room with Landry Locker. He says, shout out to the peeps currently watching daughter practice for her Flower Girl debut. Don't think she's ready for the show. Not Kenyon Green bad, but not awesome. Hey, a lot of work to be done before showtime. And maybe she's just the type of player that plays better when the lights come on. Practice, we're talking about practice. This isn't the wedding. This is just practice to be a Flower Girl. So appreciate Landry checking in from daddy-daughter duty in Oklahoma City. Let's talk about the tight end position. And let's talk about a player that had a pretty solid 2023. And coming off that 2023 season, was going to be a free agent, and then got a new contract, and then was even better in 2024 than he was in 2023. And he played tight end. No, it wasn't Dalton Schultz, because as you remember, Dalton Schultz was way worse in 2024 than he was in 2023 for the Houston Texans, but it's Jonnu Smith. So the Dolphins and the Steelers, according to Adam Schefter, have had conversations about trading Jonnu Smith from Miami to Pittsburgh. And of course, Arthur Smith previously had Jonnu Smith. Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He previously had Jonnu Smith in both Tennessee and in Atlanta. And Arthur Smith ultimately was fired in Atlanta. He's the OC in Pittsburgh. So he was trying to get Jonnu Smith up there to Pittsburgh. Jonnu Smith, coming off of a franchise breakout year for the tight end position for the Dolphins, he wants a little bit more cash. He wants a little bit more money. And he wants to stay in Miami in a rework deal. He wants to hang out there. But they've talked about the Panthers. Now, why is this getting out? It's getting out because either the Dolphins don't like the Steelers' offer and the Steelers need to up the offer, or Jonnu Smith's agent got it out there so that Jonnu Smith gets paid, because everyone's going to look at Miami and go, what the hell are you doing? He was one of the better tight ends in all of football last year. And the Dolphins are going to go, we actually don't know what we're doing, because that's kind of where Miami is right now. But it really got me thinking. Jonnu Smith, who was a Landry Locker favorite, and we talked about Jonnu Smith ahead of the Miami and Houston matchup last year. Jonnu Smith would have been cool as a free agent signing last year, and Jonnu Smith would have been cool to trade for right now, which, if he is indeed available, a lot of teams should check in on Jonnu Smith. He's playing some of the best football of his career. 2 years ago, he was good. He was really good last year. The Texans, unfortunately, when you think about you got to spend draft capital, go get him, and he wants a new deal, it doesn't quite fit with the situation that they have right now. Because you've got Dalton Schultz and this bloated contract after a disappointing season. Because, see, Jonnu Smith makes $4.2 million per year in average annual value. And Dalton Schultz makes almost 3 times that in average annual value. Last year, Jonnu Smith had 882 receiving yards and had, I believe, 7 touchdowns. And Dalton Schultz, well, he didn't have that. He had 532 receiving yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. And why does Arthur Smith really like Jonnu Smith? Well, because he can pass block. And the pass block rating on Pro Football Focus, Jonnu Smith's pass block rating 3 times higher than Dalton Schultz's pass block rating. So Jonnu Smith would have been nice. Unfortunately, the Texans are saddled with Dalton Schultz and the unremarkable performance that he had last year after getting a big-time contract from the Texans that essentially amounted to the value of a couple of franchise tags. Now, Dalton Schultz has one more year left on his deal, but it costs next to nothing to get rid of him. So this is probably Dalton Schultz's final season with the Houston Texans, especially when you factor in that his cap hit for next season is a whopping $14 million. So looking at Dalton Schultz and thinking about this, I mentioned the statistics with Dalton Schultz, and I wanted to pull this up because I wanted to look at it, and I'll try to get it a little bit larger here to make sure everybody sees it the way they need to see it. Dalton Schultz in 2022 had 577 yards. That's 40 yards less than his 532 last year. He had 5 touchdowns. That's 3 more than his 2 last year. But you look at the numbers in 2023, they weren't eye-poppingly better from a receiving production standpoint, except when you look at routes run. Dalton Schultz was too involved in the passing game. He was too involved in the passing game and was too involved in blocking duties for this team. Dalton Schultz was misused last year. Dalton Schultz should not have been thrown the ball as much as they threw the ball to Dalton Schultz, but inconsistencies in the passing offense led to Schultz getting more opportunities. And then later in the season, injuries to Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell led to Schultz being out there more and led to Schultz being out there and being an inefficient receiving target. Because again, his overall numbers, not strikingly different, as I pull him up one more time here, not strikingly different from year to year to year. Yes, the target share is, or the catch percentage a little bit lower, and some of the other stuff a little bit lower, obviously receiving yards, touchdowns, like stuff that, but he didn't fall off a cliff statistically, but they threw him the ball too much. He shouldn't have been that much of a piece of the offense. And he was an inefficient player when they did throw him the ball, because when they threw him the rock, he wasn't catching the ball at a high rate. He wasn't making competitive plays on the football on a consistent basis. And it didn't look good in the receiving game. How many times did he kind of, there's a 1-arm reach when maybe a 2-arm reach would have had it, or it looked like he was jogging towards the end of that play. Like, it didn't, the total package of it didn't look good from Dalton Schultz. And then there's the blocking, which again, didn't look good, didn't look like it was maximum effort, and didn't look like it was going to be something that he should be doing for the Houston Texans. Well, the biggest thing for Nick Caley in a tight end room that really didn't have a lot of wiggle room, when you had to revamp the wide receiver room, you had to revamp the offensive line, you needed to spend something on the running back room, and oh, by the way, whatever you needed to do on defense, there wasn't a lot of wiggle room with this tight end room. So what Nick Caley has in Dalton Schultz and Cade Stover and Brevin Jordan coming back from an injury, and Irv Smith and Luke Lachey, he's kind of got to make it work. Well, making it work with these guys is just putting them in positions that they can actually handle. Don't ask Dalton Schultz to go out there and block defensive ends. He can't do it. It looks like sometimes he won't do it, and he's not good at it. Ask him to go out there and be a receiving threat in an efficient manner. Not a top target, not a first read, but a safety valve, and a guy that hopefully understands the offense and understands where the tight end can be utilized in the offense as, again, not a focal point. That's another reason why you don't need to focus on a guy like Dalton Schultz if a Christian Kirk and a Jaden Higgins and a Jalen Noel all become players that you can rely on, all become players that CJ Stroud can consistently get the football to. Oh, by the way, you want to really have a safety valve? How about throwing the ball to Woody Marks on third downs? Because you got that safety valve of a running back that is a good pass catcher. You limit Dalton Schultz, and perhaps his efficiency will go up. And I know something Landry was going to talk about last night was Dalton Schultz injured? Because he hasn't been on the field. He's been doing some working out. And again, we speculated with OTAs yesterday that if there had been a side field to work out on, Dalton Schultz maybe would have been one of the side field workout guys because he was doing some working out after the season. Did he get something cleaned up? Was there an injury that made it look the way that it looked, but he was gutting it out and didn't want to let the team know or didn't want to use it as an excuse? There's a number of things, but ultimately part of the conversation with the offensive line was the coaching scheme was bad. I can believe that part of, not all, that part of Dalton Schultz's disappointing 2024 season was because the scheme did not use him right and was not right for him. And maybe that will change in 2025. Now, what does it look like behind Dalton Schultz? Your guess is as good as mine. Cade Stover's got to be a better pass blocker. He was a decent run blocker last year. Hopefully that's better. And he's got to be more of a receiving threat. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat there. Brevin Jordan's got to bounce back from his injury and got to still be an athlete. Got to be a guy that can be a guy that's too big for slot cornerbacks, but is too fast for linebackers. If Irv Smith's on this team, well, that's not good. Luke Lachey's got to go out there, be the blocker that we think he can be, and showcase some of those receiving talents when he is called upon to do that. Showcase some of those receiving talents that he showcased a couple of years ago to Iowa before his ankle injury popped up. So this tight end room, while the talent is not there, we'll say the same thing about the offensive line room. If the coaching and the scheme is better, perhaps they're going to be enough. And if the wide receivers are just healthy and better than they were last year, you don't need the tight ends as much as well. So that's where I am on Dalton Schultz, and Jonnu Smith got me thinking about that. I have to imagine that Adam Schefter agent report is, or Adam Schefter report that kind of felt like it came from an agent is something that's going to get Jonnu Smith either paid in Miami, or it is going to be something that gets Jonnu Smith paid in Miami. Not something that ultimately is going to get him traded. So HDAV Traveler with the super chat. Appreciate you, my friend. Good to see you here in the chat as well. So on my back end of the software, it doesn't show me that there's like I guess there's a new feature here in the chat where you can be the community leader. Okay. Well, that's new. I don't know if do I need that? I think you're all community leaders here if you're participating in the chat here as well. So be happy to take some questions for you, hang out a little bit more. Again, the Texans will have another open OTA tomorrow and going to be focused on the offensive line. That's kind of what I do. But paying attention to those tight ends a little bit more, seeing if there's something to them. Obviously, a little bit more about the wide receivers. See if anybody who didn't go on Wednesday is going to go on Friday. And then the most important thing about the workout tomorrow, the most important thing about the Texans hitting the field tomorrow is C.J. Stroud going to throw? Is C.J. Stroud going to be on the field, getting rid of the football, and does he look comfortable and healthy while he's doing it? Because it's one thing to miss one day. That could be a one-off. That could be a really weird plan for a throwing program. But when you miss 2 days, that's when it really gets strange. That's when you start to worry. Is there something he's coming back from? If he is coming back from something, when did it happen? Was there surgery? Is there no surgery because he didn't want to have surgery? Does that mean there could be surgery later? Lots of things to worry about if Stroud doesn't throw tomorrow. And oh, by the way, after practice, Nick Caley will be at the microphone. Lots to ask about him. He'll be asked about C.J. Stroud and his arm if C.J. Stroud doesn't go. And if C.J. Stroud does go, I want to know from Nick Caley, hey, C.J. Stroud said he's going to have more control in this offense than he previously has had, and that's what he wanted. What does that look like, and what does that mean? What's he going to have under his purview that he previously didn't have? So that's something that I very much want to know. Engineer Stroud limited again? That's the biggest question for tomorrow. Limited or not? I mean, limited would be one thing. Not throwing at all is what he did the other day. He did handoffs. That was it. I bet you are staring at those tight ends, you sly bugger. Well, Nick Caley said it best.
I like tight ends.
Nick Caley said it best. Patrick says we need more competition to fund the beer fund. I'll see if I can pry a competition quote out of Nick Caley tomorrow as well. See if I could pry something out of it. So there's no open practice today. Open practice tomorrow, though. JB Allen, the Annihilator, with a conspiracy theory. No Stroud, so the Davis Mills looks good. The Texans can trade him to the Saints or the Steelers. Boy, if that was the hope, Davis Mills did not do a good job adding to his value in that practice the other day. Toxic Monkey. Aaron Wilson said he didn't think it was anything big, so he's watching him warm up and stuff. He was moving fine. Well, you guys know the rule with Aaron Wilson and injuries. If Aaron Wilson said the guy's healthy, he's had a couple of hiccups here. The old joke I would say all the time is if Aaron Wilson told me I was healthy, I'd get my affairs in order. Aaron's had some hiccups, okay? He's had some hits. But there was a stretch there where Aaron was going to say a guy was good, and then he wasn't good. I watched him warm up too. And then I was like, hey, warming up is a lot different than throwing the football to the new wide receivers that he has. Did you see First Things First talk about the Texans today? Their takes were horrible, in my opinion. Which one's First Things First? Is that First Take? Or is that like a segment in First Take or something? I don't know which one that is. They don't pay attention to the Texans. That's why you guys have SNL. That's why you have myself, Landry Locker, the Locker Room, my channel. So we give it to you. We're there. That's a big thing. Physically being there, watching it, observing it with our own eyes. You know, we don't take other people's reports and turn it into content because we don't live here and don't attend practice. We do live here. We do attend. We watch. We observe. We see it in person. Is Luke Lachey, the rookie tight end from Iowa, George Kittle-like yet? He is not. He is not George Kittle-like. George Kittle-like yet. Dalton Schultz needs to go back to Dallas so Will Anderson can run his lazy ass over. Well, here's the thing. The Texans are set to play the Cowboys next year. That is the rotation. We know a portion of the opponents because of the NFL rotation. We know a portion of the opponents for the 2026 season. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. But because you rotate through. Oh, this year you play the AFC East. This year you play the NFC East. This year you play the AFC South. We do know. Let me see if I can find it. I thought I had it pretty. Oh yeah, here we go. So we do know that the Texans will play the Dallas Cowboys next year. In fact, you look at it right up here. I don't know if making it bigger is going to work here. Somehow that's not working. But yeah, so the home teams, obviously the AFC South teams, but Ravens and Bengals at home, and then Cowboys and Giants from the NFC East at home, and then a road trip to Philly and a road trip to Washington. So the Cowboys, they will be on the schedule next year. And if Dalton Schultz went back, I would think that maybe he's probably not going to block Will Anderson. Who was the 6'9" undrafted free agent tight end? Any word on him? So that player was Mason Tharp from Texas Tech. He had a tryout at rookie minicamp, so he did not get a contract. He just had a tryout, and he was not signed to the roster. I'd keep an eye on him if they had something change from a tight end perspective, but Tharp is not currently on the roster. Yes, it'll be Baltimore via division rotation, not via winning the division. What's this crown thing situation? That's a new YouTube feature where the more you comment, the more you move up as a crowned commenter in the chat. We don't have any control over that. That's totally a YouTube thing. I can't even see it on the back end unless I go into the video. So nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Engineer Cody's going to buy you or a minor of your choosing a 6-pack of beer. Not true. Not true. All right, Elijah's breaking down the ESPN take on the Texans for us this morning. He says, basically, they said the Texans will get CJ playing better, but the team will be worse. The defense only has a good secondary and didn't improve. Didn't mention any of the new weapons. Only Kirkin said he's, I'm going to guess, not good. Oh, underwhelming. Said he's underwhelming. Yeah, they don't pay attention. They don't watch. That's okay. The Texans, if they want to consistently be talked about with knowledge from the experts, they've got to consistently be one of the best teams in football. And that matters to some people. It doesn't matter to me. And hopefully you get your fill of Texans conversation from right here on SNL, the Locker Room with Landry Locker, and myself when I have my own channel. In other words, I need to touch grass. Well, no, I mean, you could touch your digital crown on your digital head because I think you're in the second place. That makes you Prince Engineer. Makes you Prince Engineer to go along with King Lumineer. It looks like Don Hendrickson is the king now. This is such a strange thing that they've added to YouTube here. Yeah, that's how we corrupt the youth of America. It's when we buy them beverages because they're underage, we tell them make sure they follow the channel. That's a joke. That does not actually happen. FBI, stop it. Stop it. All right. Hit list for tomorrow. CJ Stroud, a little bit more on the wide receivers. Hopefully something from the running backs. Obviously the offensive line, and a little bit more on that secondary that had a pretty impressive first day of OTAs. Practice early in the morning. Have the comments from Nick Caley and the other coaches, Frank Ross and Matt Burke. After practice, I'll have content for you on the Cody Stoots channel. Be live right here, 4 p.m. tomorrow. Full total. I will unload the notebook for you on the practice for tomorrow, and I'll unload it for you tomorrow afternoon right here on the SNL channel at 4 p.m. So appreciate everybody for coming through. Like and subscribe on the Locker Room, like and subscribe on my channel as well. Appreciate everybody interacting in the comment section, whether you won a fake YouTube crown or you didn't win a fake YouTube crown. We certainly appreciate you coming around. Certainly appreciate super chats. And again, thank you everybody again for the Frank Ross donations, Coach Ross's cuts. We made our first donation to them on your behalf, on the channel's behalf. So again, we really appreciate that. Coach Ross, I know, was very, why did I call him Coach Ross? He's not my coach. Frank Ross was very appreciative. He said, thank you again yesterday when Landry and I saw him. And so I know he's pumped about that. The event is coming up. It's on the calendar very soon. And we do, again, really appreciate everybody's contributions to that. And it's still a worthwhile interview to go check out. If you haven't seen us with Frank Ross, check out that interview right here on the channel as well. Okay, so what does Landry always say? No matter if you are a purple-crowned royalty in the YouTube chat, or if you aren't, remember we're all in this together. And then my catchphrase is always eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.